Hi guys, I'm here with chapter 8 of our book, What is the Declaration of Independence? This will be the last chapter for the week, and then on Monday I will upload some more for you. Chapter 7, The King Must Go. When word of the battle between the Massachusetts colonists and the Redcoats spread to the other colonies, fear took over. Great Britain had the most powerful army in the world. How could the ragtag militias possibly defeat the Brits in an all-out war? Only a few weeks later, the Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia. This time, they met in Independence Hall. And this time, delegates from all 13 colonies attended, 56 men in all. Some were lawyers, some were businessmen, and some were farmers. Many of them were wealthy. Some, like John Hancock from Massachusetts, were extremely wealthy. All were leaders in their colonies. As at the First Continental Congress the year before, some delegates still held out hope for a peaceful solution. So not everybody was interested in going to war with Great Britain. Where were the women? Were there any women at either of the First or Second Continental Congress? No. Back then, no woman was considered the equal of a man. Although colonial women joined protests groups against the king, and some even fought in disguise after the war broke out, they were not intended to have any of the rights that colonial men so desperately wanted: the right to vote, the right to make laws, and to control their own destinies. In the United States, women did not get the vote until 1920. We talked about that a little bit, that women weren't considered equal. But if you remember from back in September, we also talked about the first female governor was in Pennsylvania. Unofficially, she was not elected, but she was the wife of William Penn, who took over and actually ran our state for a while there. So women still did important things. They just didn't have the same rights as men yet. There were some new delegates to the Second Continental Congress. Benjamin Franklin, a well-known writer, printer, and inventor, was one. He urged the colonies to split from Great Britain. So did Thomas Jefferson, a farmer and scholar from Virginia. Both of these men were gifted speakers. At the Second Continental Congress, they helped persuade others to their way of thinking and helped change the course of American history. During the summer of 1775, the Second Continental Congress made many important decisions, including creating a real army, not just militias, to fight against the British, voting George Washington from Virginia as commander of the new army, printing their own money and refusing to use the British pound, organizing a navy to fight against Great Britain's powerful ships, and sending Silas Deane from Connecticut to France to ask for help and money to fight the British. In July 1775, the Second Continental Congress sent King George III another letter. The delegates were making one last try to avoid war. John Dickinson of Philadelphia wrote the letter. He believed the colonies could stay connected to Great Britain. At the end, Dickinson wrote, "That your Majesty may enjoy a long and prosperous reign, and that your descendants may govern your dominions with honor to themselves and happiness to their subjects, in our sincere prayer." Dickinson's letter was saying that the colonists hoped King George would rule over America for a long time and bring happiness to everyone. What did Sam Adams, Ben Franklin, Patrick Henry, and Thomas Jefferson think of Dickinson's letter to King George III? They despised the idea, but the letter was sent anyway. How did King George react? He refused to read the letter. He wouldn't even look at it. The king's silence convinced even delegates who had hoped for peace that staying connected to Great Britain was no longer possible. So they tried again to send a letter. The first one was ignored. The second one was ignored too. He didn't even look at it or open it. Thomas Paine's common sense. Thomas Paine was a British man who came to America in 1774 with the help of Benjamin Franklin. Paine was inspired by what the colonists were doing to combat the British Army. In January of 1776, he published a 48-page pamphlet called Common Sense. Paine argued in plain language why America should split from Great Britain. Common Sense became the best-selling pamphlet in America. 500,000 copies were bought. That meant at least 1 out of every 4 colonists read it. Paine's words were read out loud in pubs and meeting halls throughout the colonies. General George Washington had Common Sense read to his soldiers. Thomas Paine could have made a fortune from his pamphlet, but he accepted no money from its sales. He gave nearly all profits to the American Army for uniforms and weapons. So that's a picture of Thomas Paine and his pamphlet that he wrote, which is kind of like a small book. It was only 48 pages, but in it he was saying, and it called it Common Sense, that people who live in America should be the ones who are making the decisions about what is happening in America. And it really started to rally people to agree that we needed to fight against Great Britain and declare freedom. So that's where we're at now. I hope you have a happy Friday and a great weekend, and I hope you're all healthy and safe. Answer the couple questions. Send me a message if you want. I miss you all, and I'll be back on Monday to continue our story and to see what happens with the Declaration of Independence. See you soon.